Welcome to this week's episode of Roadmap. I'm your host, Rich, and today I'm joined by Ian, Callum, and Sam, and we're doing a bit of a collaboration episode between Autotrader at Roadmap and the Moonpig Tech podcast. So welcome, Sam.
Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. So before we dive into things, let's just do a bit of a roundtable of who you are, what it is that you do at your respective companies, so Autotrader and Moonpig, and why we're here today. So Callum, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Rach. Yeah, I'm Callum. I'm a product lead at Autotrader. I work on our data and AI products, but my kind of part-time, I guess, side desk thing is that I co-founded the Roadmap podcast and still do a lot of the organizational stuff for the podcast now.
Nice.
Cool. I'm Sam. I'm a senior engineer for Moonpig on the search team. So I deal with kind of the search engine, how you find products across the website and things. But also more recently, I've been working on the Moonpig podcast, which is why I'm here.
Cool. I'm Ian, senior art director at Autotrader. I lead various campaigns, in-house creatives and things like that for Autotrader. I wouldn't really call myself a founder of Roadmap. I was more tagged along when I was shanghaied.
Yeah.
Into this, and I've been here to stay.
Yeah, can't get rid of you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Welcome. So today, like I said, we've got a bit of a collaboration episode going on. So we've been on a journey at Roadmap over however many years now, like a couple of years.
Yeah,
and still going strong. And what we thought would be a good opportunity is to actually collaborate from other people in our community. So Sam, you're joining us today from Moonpig, where you're going to reflect on your experiences of getting involved in the Moonpig Tech podcast. And we're just going to use this episode as a bit of a share and learn and hopefully impart some wisdom for anyone kind of listening at home. You might be working at certain companies and you think this is a good idea that you might want to do. So it's just more of a knowledge share and lessons learned, maybe with a few anecdotes in there as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Let's kind of kick things off, really. So how, I guess from both of your areas, how did the podcast start? So what has been the story so far? And I think there's actually been different kind of trajectories that each of you's been on. How did it come about? Who wants to start?
Yeah, I can take it from the Autotrader side. So in November 2022, I looked up the date. It's quite a while ago now. We started a group, and you were part of it, Rach, in the product team at AT, about how we build a bit of a brand about like how we work in the product team, in the product space at Autotrader. And we had a load of ideas. Some stuff was like writing blogs, stuff like that, but it's difficult to get people to write a blog. It's much easier to get them to sit down and have a chat. So podcasting naturally came up as like a potential avenue for us. We thought we'd be sat around a table in like a small meeting room, around a phone, just having a chat about stuff. But I mentioned it to one of our video production team at the time, Tom, and he was like, "No, we got to do this properly if we're doing it. Like, we've got an in-house video team. Let's get stuck in, which is why we're here." So yeah, looped them in, and they kind of gave us a lot of the stuff that we need in terms of what equipment we might want to buy for this. All the tools that we need to properly record a podcast. And then we started in May last year, actually recording them. Recorded our first episode and released our first episode in May last year, and we've been releasing pretty much every week ever since then, and recording every month with like a variety of people across the business. So that's kind of the backstory of the AT podcast.
Cool. And Sam, from a Moonpig perspective, how did you get involved? Because you're actually quite new to joining an existing working group.
Yeah, so I joined
a bit of a journey.
Yeah, I joined quite recently. So I'd be remiss not to give a couple of shout outs to the people who started the Moonpig podcast. So that's a couple of engineers, Richard Tappenden and Leon Hewitt. It similarly kind of started as a knowledge sharing exercise, like almost internally, but it was just never... The podcast was never made completely internal. So it was a way of knowledge sharing throughout the company, but it was intended to be external at the same time. So it kind of started based off of that, around discussions around like objectives and how to knowledge share on certain technical things. And then it's kind of just grown out of there. It's become a kind of a way to get the word out about what Moonpig's doing in terms of the tech that we use and what we're building at Moonpig and things like that. Yeah.
Excellent. So I guess why are you doing podcasts?
I think, well, again, at Autotrader, we're sort of going through a bit of a transitional phase at the moment, it's fair to say. A lot of our company objectives are blue cards, that we call them. We have one called Inside Out.
And what are blue cards to people that have probably, I mean, it'll be
Probably
similar to other people like OKRs and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I guess the easiest way to sum it up is like our biggest company objectives.
Yeah.
It's probably fair to say. Yeah, and one of them is Inside Out. Obviously, sort of being aligned to brand and creative and things like that. There's a lot of levers I can sort of pull in that space. Somewhat selfishly, when I was on that call with Tom and Callum, like, a podcast is always something I've wanted to do for my own career, but I was just very adamant about, like, we have to take it very seriously. I don't just want this to be like a one and done and then it just falls off.
Yeah.
Which things like that can easily do. Like, we all have day jobs. You know, that day job has to take priority. But yeah, but I guess a bit similar to what Sam was saying, like, we do a lot of great stuff in Autotrader. A lot of people probably still see us as a magazine. We're doing a lot to shift that. And also, like, in-house, like, we all work on great stuff and we don't know what everyone's working on all the time. So a bit of a knowledge share, a bit of an external knowledge share so people can see what we're working on. And yeah, I guess that's probably the best way. Don't know if you've got anything else you would have thought.
Yeah, it's that whole window into Autotrader thing is how I always explain it to people. Like, if you're either a candidate applying for a job at Autotrader, you work at AT but in a different area to other people, or you're just someone who's interested in what's going on in a big tech company like Autotrader, watch an episode of the podcast, like, pick out things that you're interested in, go watch Roadmap. We actually had a message this morning from one of our resourcing team that we've all seen, that was saying that someone had applied for a job. They were saying how they watched an episode of Roadmap and it, like, really brought across the culture and, like, how people communicate with each other at Autotrader and made them go through the process. And I think it kind of made out that they got the job, which is cool. So yeah, that's, you know, one of the main reasons really why we're all here doing it, I think.
I think it makes because, like, job interviews, they are never easy. They're always really daunting. And I don't know anyone who enjoys that process. And it's kind of like you're joining a community that already exists, or you want to join it. And I do think the podcast helps in a way because it just kind of puts faces to names.
Yeah.
It puts people behind what the company's doing. It just makes things feel a little bit more informal and less daunting. So that when you are doing your research, like, I've researched for interviews in the past, and, like, all there is just like a company website, and you can do so many, like, consumer journeys online. You can really walk yourself through it, and you can read things on, like, Google News and things like that, but actually just bringing, like, the heart and, like, the personality to things. And it does give you a sense as well, because I know that not every company is for everyone. So if you do think, oh, like, I don't know if I'll fit in here, or actually this is brilliant, these are my people, just gives you, like, a really good sense. So
and especially in the tech industry, like, so no two companies do things the same. It might be the tech stack, it might be, like, the agile ceremonies or whatever, and it's normally very hard to find out what that is. And I think a podcast is a really good way of finding that out generally.
Yeah, even roles are so blurry in the product and tech space as well. Like, a data analyst at one company is probably doing completely different things to a data analyst at another company. So if you want to know what that is at Autotrader, watch an episode where those data analysts chat. And
same at Moonpig.
Yeah. And Sam, I guess, is it similar for you, or are there other kind of motivations as well?
No, I mean, it's very similar. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what has been said I would echo. So, like, we do use it kind of for new candidates and new recruits to find out about the space, whether that be like technical deep dives, or whether that be like processes even. So we've had some episodes about process and stuff and things like that. So that tends to be a really good tool for that. But yeah, also, as we said, like, knowledge sharing, kind of just getting the word out either to teams within Moonpig who might work in quite disparate domains and might not, like, interact with, you know, the search domain in my case or something like that. Or like, if you're external to Moonpig, finding out about things that you might not know, like Moonpig does its own search software or stuff like that, for example.
Brilliant. So what's been covered so far? There's so many episodes. I think what I might do is actually phrase a question. What's been your favourite episodes? That's going to be it's going to be hard to answer, but
that's really tough because, as you say, it's been so broad on the roadmap so far. We've covered everything from, like, very cultural types of topics, like how we work at Autotrader, to some more technical topics, like deep diving into specific technologies, like Sam and the Moonpig podcast do as well. So I don't think I could pick a favourite. That's a cop out, isn't it? I don't think I could pick. It's like picking between your children.
I didn't think that question would come across like that, because I thought you were going to say like a favourite episode and someone's going to be like, well, I was on this episode, why have we not picked that?
Yeah, I always think because I usually sit at the other side of the camera when we're recording them, and when they finish, I'm like, oh, this has been like one of my favourites so far. And then we do the next one, I'm like, oh, that's been a really good episode as well.
Like bands tour towns and they're like, oh, you've been our favourite audience so far.
Yeah, but I'm not lying. Like
Yeah.
I love watching them all and I love listening to them all. So
Favorite episodes, I'd say actually, I think one of the very early ones we did with product marketing with Scott and Amanda, that was brilliant. That was great.
Yeah.
When we had Dave on from Equal Experts, that
Yeah.
was brilliant, and also Amelia from Equal Experts. They were both great episodes. And also like the content design one. I think, as we've sort of alluded to there, like we all have different roles. We have copywriters, we have content designers. Like on the face of it, they both write words. Like what's the difference? But the episodes that have been my favourite are when we've really managed to get into it, I think.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of overviews, I would say, haven't we? But we're trying to do get a lot more external guests on and really get into sort of the nitty gritty of subjects now, which is quite exciting, because I think for me it's always been like the people that make the topic the most compelling. I think I said this on the last one, like if you just come and say, oh, I work in data or I work in that, like at face value it's probably like, oh, you just look at graphs or you just do that, do you? And it's like, actually no, we can do this, we can do that, we can do X, we can do Y. And when someone's super passionate about what they do, like I think that's really awesome. I think that's just giving somebody a platform to do that is brilliant.
Nice. Sam, how about you?
Yeah, so my favourite episode, I'm a little bit biased probably because I think it was the first or second episode I recorded, but we did an episode on data science, which was really interesting. I think data science is one of those things which has almost become a buzzword in the industry in a way, and you don't necessarily know what they do unless you interact with them. And so we did a good episode on that, which was really fun. We also did an episode on like an innovation team that was spun up within Moonpig to work on like proof of concept projects. That was really cool. We had one of our like principal product designers and one of the senior engineers on that innovations team speak about a bunch of stuff on that episode. So that was interesting as well. And we've got a few coming up that I think will be like really technical, which is always my kind of favorite.
Yeah, that's something we want to do more of, and I know we've chatted about it, but actually having some of our engineers lead the episode. So we've recorded one. We've recorded one so far, and it goes over my head sometimes as a product lead and not a software engineer, but I think we need to do more of that, like play into that community a bit more, because lots of them have been quite, as Ian says, like high level introductions to topics so far.
Definitely helps. I think it helps having like a mix as well, because I've definitely started to see that from our perspective, it's not just like product leads or people that work in product doing the hosting. We've had Nathan from a design perspective, we've got Jenny coming in from a tech angle, and it's just they will get into those questions that perhaps because we're coming in from a different angle and what we work with every day, they're just going to dig into that. It's the detail that you want. I really loved the episode with Hayley. There was lots to take away. I do love episodes where you can learn things. Like there's lessons that you've learned, and things don't have to be 100% perfect all the time, but it's what you take out of those experiences. And I just think like, because I'm such a practical learner, it's just nice to see other people kind of doing that in the industry and in other kind of areas. So that was a really good episode.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Rach, like about things aren't always perfect. Like we don't expect people to come on this podcast and like, oh, I've got this great thing to show, I've got this great thing to talk about. It can just be stuff that you're generally interested in. Like this is what we tried at, this is what we failed, or we just didn't get right. Like it's still equally valuable stuff, but it's just great to see people's like human perceptions of, you know, I definitely could have done that better, or like it's a conversation we have quite a lot when people are planning to come on. It's like, oh, but the project hasn't finished yet. No, I'd rather hear about it as it's just started, or as you're thinking about it, or as you're really in the middle of it, actually, rather than like, you don't need an end product. As well,
and it's like, no, that's brilliant, that's what we need. Learn.
Exactly. Just humans at the end of the day. It happens.
We're all just trying to figure it out. Excellent. So I think actually, speaking of detail, how do you kind of go about doing a podcast? Like that's quite a broad question, but there's obviously tech involved. Like we've got these super expensive microphones that I'm worried if I kind of knock it, it's gonna be like a couple of grand, it feels. Like what is involved in putting a production together, and what's that thinking? And again, I think there's like different perspectives, because I think we've got a very specific way of how we do podcasts, but I know at Moonpig, actually, if we could start with Moonpig, like some of the thought process that goes into how you put that together.
The interesting thing at Moonpig is it's started relatively recently, and I think we're kind of starting from a bit more of a ground level in terms of our podcast compared to Autotrader maybe. So we do it in a very kind of I guess you'd call it like low equipment way. So we record it on Zoom, and you record multiple audio tracks from each of the participants, and then we just cut it together in Audacity afterwards, and we release as audio only episodes. So the nice thing about that is, and I think, you know, podcasting has exploded in the past however many years, I guess, since COVID. And one of the reasons for that is it's become really easy to do with lots of different technologies. You really don't need much to start. Obviously, the higher the production quality, the better overall generally, but like you don't need much to start at all. So we've kind of taken to that, and we just record it amongst ourselves remotely, which also means we have a really high reach of people we can get, because there's a lot of people in Moonpig that work either from Manchester or from London or remotely, but we can get all of them on kind of at the drop of a hat because we're just recording on Zoom, which is really useful. But then obviously also there's benefits to having like video and stuff, which we would maybe consider doing in the future. And I think we actually did consider at the start of the podcast, but we decided not to initially. But yeah.
Yeah, I think just to follow on from what Sam said there, like podcasting has exploded over the past year or two. We are super fortunate at Autotrader that, you know, we've got all this equipment, but I wouldn't want anyone like watching or listening to think, oh, I need all this equipment. Like you see streamers, you see YouTubers who've got all this gear. Like we are in a super fortunate position that video work with us every day. I sit with video every day, and like for those at home, like it's a 3-camera setup, a basic light. We rely on all the lighting above us, and a RØDECaster to record audio. It's a fairly simple setup, but you can use Zoom. There's no reason why you can't do that. We haven't experimented with dialing people in or anything like that. It's not something
we did talk about that as well.
We have talked about it, yeah.
So
yeah, they both have their pros and cons, but you know, there's no reason why you can't just put a mobile phone down and do an audio recording and then release it out. Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. I would say if you're going to start it, do not overcomplicate it.
Yeah, no, and we started editing some short clips ourselves as well, just to remove pressure on the video team behind the scenes.
Shout out to Choppity.
Shout out to Choppity. We recorded an episode with Zara, the CEO of Choppity. But that's just a tool that like anyone can use, even me as someone who's not a video editor. But my skateboarding videos when I was like 16.
I thought you were going to say like the other week.
No, not anymore. Brains are too brittle now. But yeah, it's things like that just to free up the team a bit more, so we can do stuff ourselves. It's really useful.
I think it's a testament as well, because if you look at all these apps out there, like TikTok, like everyone is a like I guess vlogger.
Yeah.
If
Vlogger,
you like,
influencer,
influencer. Like you really do have everything like on one device these days. So I think as long as you've kind of got like the right idea and you are passionate about something, and it is a topic where you've got a shared interest with a group of people, it's all it takes really. So yeah, definitely agree.
Just
do it. See what happens. If it don't work, it don't work. Then you've got some lessons to learn.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that on another episode.
100%.
Brilliant. So yeah, I think actually moving on to lessons learned. So there are going to be people that are listening to this episode who they might be in a situation where they want to start this at their own company. They might just be doing it out of passion as well, like they work in products and tech and they want to get involved in what is actually quite a growing scene. Sounds like a genre of music or something like that. The podcast scene. What advice, like what are the key learnings? And I'm talking like the good, perhaps the not so good, the in-between. Like what are the big things that you've taken out of your experiences where you think actually someone's listening to this, I really want them to know this as they're going into that journey.
Yeah, I think the main, like the really good thing for me is seeing guests come off the sofa at the end of a recording, and just there might be people who've never really done any kind of public speaking, never been behind a camera before, but they're just hyped by it, and they go away. And we've had people go off, do this first, go off and then do conferences and things like that, because they've built up that confidence in themselves. So that's probably been the really good bit for me. The not so good bit, but the thing that I'd always be mindful when people are considering it is how much effort goes into organising it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you don't need all the cameras, as Ian says, or anything like that, or the mics necessarily. You could literally just have a phone like we were planning to do. But still a lot of logistics that goes on behind the scenes, like getting all the topics sorted, the guests sorted, getting the uploads done and all that stuff. And the video team help us out a lot with some of that. But there's a lot more than just sitting and recording some audio or some video that goes on behind just to make sure that things are running smoothly. So yeah, when we've had conversations with people before about like, I want to get into podcasting, that's the main thing from my side. It's like, just be mindful that there's a lot of time that has to go into it.
Yeah,
to get it all set
it does
up.
Creep up as well.
It does.
I really appreciate your dedication of every podcast episode that we record, because I don't know if people will know this at home, but like, you are sat there on the side, like putting the descriptions down. That is not AI, that is you. So you literally listen to every single episode.
Yeah, well, it's
to put that
easier.
together.
It's easier being in the room and actually
Really
listening to
appreciate
it and doing the timestamps and things rather than having to watch them all like back at another time as well. So yeah, I'm always in the room doing that. So thanks, Rach.
Shout out. Cool. Yeah, how about yourselves, Sam?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a balancing act, right? So obviously the main job, your main role is always going to come first in terms of like feature delivery and whatever you're doing. So it's definitely a balancing act, and it does take a lot of effort. So we have a team of around 4 or 5 people at Moonpig that look after the podcast. And, you know, going from like planning stages to organizing guests and stuff to organizing the script of the podcast, that does take a lot of work. And you're not always, especially in really busy periods, not going to have time necessarily. So you've kind of got to take it at your own pace, I think. And, you know, it depends. It also depends what you're trying to get out of the podcast, right? Because then you can decide how much more or less effort to put onto it and kind of prioritize things. So yeah, that's the biggest thing for me, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd probably echo what Callum said as well, like just the time constraints. Understand like what you're doing, like similar to what Sam said as well. Like if you're a one-man band, for example, like how much can you get done being that one-man band? Again, we are super fortunate. I don't actually know how many people we've probably got doing this.
Well, mainly us from a logistical standpoint.
But I think in terms of like, you know, like creating thumbnails, like setting up the gear and things like that, we have got quite a decent team. Just work within your constraints, man. That's what I would say. Like, and then what you'll find is like people are actually interested in what you do and will probably want to join on. Like, but yeah, when you factor in a day job, messaging people on LinkedIn, writing a script, doing all the research, things like that, it can quickly turn into another full-time job. So just know what you're getting yourself into.
It does. But it's like you say, it's like the more people that can get involved, the easier it does become. So I think like collaboration's definitely a key. I don't think that unless you've got a load of money, like, you know, these big podcasts you listen to where they've got a production team and they can just pay a company to do it. I've never appreciated before like how much actually goes into like you do have to kind of do that yourself. It's like a business a little bit, isn't it?
It's and the hosting as well. Like just to shout out to Rach.
Thank you.
That's why we've diversified the hosting a little bit as well, because I think initially it was only yourself and Pete who were doing the hosting. Pete's on our leadership team now, very, very busy, very difficult to get time in with him, and very difficult for him to have the time to plan the episodes and things as well. And yourself really busy. So we've got Nathan, who's a product designer, who does some more of the design episodes, and Jenny's don't know if it's out yet, but she recorded one of the more techie podcasts with some other software engineers. So trying to get a few more people involved just to make sure that we've always got, you know, enough people to keep it moving, really.
I like how it becomes like a bit of a company thing rather than like, I think when it was initially just me and Pete, and we were kind of like interchanging like who's available at what time, and we did start out as a small group, you do kind of feel very like, oh, if I can't make this particular recording day, you do feel like, it's not like you take it personally, but you're just like, oh, I will try everything to get to it. But we are extremely busy people, and actually it really does help having a bit of a community of hosts and people to share their experience as well. It feels like we've kind of set up a like new Autotrader team a bit as well. It's nice. It's like when we see each other in the office, it's like we never like work on anything else together, but we've got this thing in common now. So I do just see each other at coffee stand. You're like, hey, like,
exactly.
Excellent. Yeah, I think from a hosting perspective, yeah, there's a lot that does go into it. I think for me, I'm just there to kind of help facilitate a conversation. I think where the effort is for myself is more just getting the guests and getting the ideas.
Yeah.
So I think what maybe people who might be listening don't appreciate is sometimes we don't always have the content lined up. We do have to actually work hard to go out there and find people who might be interested. And Sam, I'm sure it's the same at Moonpig. I know you kind of had like a bit of a journey in getting people interested. So I guess we could go on to kind of like the next bit of the discussion. It's all about how do you get people interested?
Sure.
Because I know you've had a couple of experiences at Moonpig.
Yeah, so when we're planning episodes, we always try to find like certain people to come on, and obviously that's it can be a hard task. It's if there's something that people are genuinely passionate about and interested in, then it's normally pretty easy to get them to come on. But not to stereotype software engineers too much, but a lot of them are quite often shy. And so if it's not something they're super interested in, so there's an episode that we are planning at the moment, but we're trying to kind of struggling to find people to come on because it's not a topic that there's many engineers that are passionate about, even though it's something that we want to do an episode on. And that's kind of the thing of you getting guests to come on. It's always better to be fairly light touch. Like you shouldn't try to force anyone to come on. You shouldn't try to like get people to go completely out of their comfort zone. To an extent, a podcast is always going to be a little bit out of people's comfort zone. But you know, all I would say is, yeah, definitely don't try to force people. And it's always better if it's something they're truly passionate about, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'd had more trouble in the early days, didn't we? I think getting people to come on, like when we're like, oh, what's this? What is this? What? Especially when they start seeing the cameras as well. That threw a lot of people off early doors. Like, whoa.
It's like doing a sales pitch as well at some point. It's like, well, let me tell you the benefits of roadmap. It's like, I'm doing a sales pitch to people.
We're recording this as well. Like, it's an audio one, it's a podcast, isn't it? So I think we had more trouble early days. A lot more people are a bit more forthcoming. I'd say now. I think it's starting to be seen a lot more as a platform.
We've got into a bit of a rhythm as well. So after every season, we do a retro and a content planning session. Yeah. So we'll reflect on how it's all gone and make any tweaks that we might want to do for the next season. But we also whack a load of post-it notes on Miro of like, here are really good topics, things that are going on in the business at the minute that'd be really interesting to talk about, or even external guests that we've got in our networks that'd be really good to come on. So.
And I think don't underestimate yourself either. Like people want to do nice things. Like this is a nice thing. People are genuinely quite forthcoming with content as well. Like you just have to be relentless with the output, and you put effort in, you will get effort back. Like in the darker days, Callum, I was touting myself shamelessly on LinkedIn. Like it was awful. So many unanswered
Oh
DMs.
yeah, do you remember when we just put posts out? We'd literally just start the podcast, and I don't know why, but I was like, well, I've got like 400 LinkedIn friends who I've met. I'm like, surely someone's gonna have content. I just put this like cold message out, like cold calling my LinkedIn contacts. I was like, who'd like to come onto this? But nobody like messaged me. Yeah,
but it's quite easy to just get so disheartened, I guess.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
If guests don't want to come on, because I think you as well, like you see the benefit, and then people coming on, like why wouldn't you want to come on? Like you're great at what you do, like. Yeah. But like Sam said, it's about that light touch. We're not forcing anybody to come on. You just have to sort of say, I think you'd be great coming on. I think that's kind of our approach.
Yeah, it's just a balance. I think if we relied on everyone to come forwd, we wouldn't have enough content, especially to go out weekly. So it's a balance of like, these are things we think are good. Let's approach some people. And then, we get the odd person coming to us and going, oh, we'd love to do an episode. We don't know what we talk about necessarily, or we do either way. And we just work with them to refine what they might want to cover.
I think it's recognising the good that people do as well. Because I think you do get stuck into like your own products and the teams that you work in. And sometimes because you are that busy, you don't appreciate the fact that you are making an impact in the business. And I think actually what I have noticed doing this is you do bring out that kind of like realization in people. Like it's great to see the reactions, and when they're doing the episodes, they're like, actually, I have made an impact. I've done a really good job, and these are the things that I can share. So it's actually great to empower people as well, and bring that out of colleagues where, without this, I don't think they would have recognized it as easily.
Yeah, just gives them an opportunity to reflect on what they've been doing and the impact they've had. Definitely, in an easy way as well. You have to do a sit for half an hour.
Yeah, just have a chat. The thing is, it's like you could have this conversation at the the coffee machine,
Yeah.
in the lunch queue, just sat at your desk. Like
Yeah.
we're always talking about the work that we're doing, but it's weird when you start mentioning like
Microphones.
microphones,
Yeah.
that thing that keeps going back and forth, whether it's the camera,
Slider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the slider. Yeah, it just kind of like hit home a little bit. Yeah, interesting. So speaking of impact, I'm liking these links
Yeah.
that we're doing. We're like mentioning keywords and like
It's like
going
we
on.
planned it.
Yeah, I guess with podcasts, because I know there's obviously reasons why we do this, but it is nice to see the impact that we're making. How in our areas, how do we measure that success? Like, what's the easiest way of doing that? Where you know you're doing a good job, or you might need to reflect. How do you kind of get that balance?
Yeah, we've got a bit of a rhythm, as I mentioned, where we do the retros after every season, but we also send out a kind of a pack to our leadership team, which covers both the kind of quant metrics of like how many views and listens and things the podcast had, subscribers and all that kind of stuff, growth generally, but also the kind of qualitative feedback, like have we heard anything from the resourcing team? Have we had anyone reach out? If we, because we've had people from like New Zealand, Germany, all sorts of places reach out to us after watching the podcast.
People spotting Pete on the bus.
Yeah,
That
people
is still
spotting
like the most
Pete, the
random
other host
thing.
on the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we do that, and that kind of gives us a bit of a gauge of success of like, right, how many subscribers have we had over the last 3 months and all that kind of stuff. But I think what me and Ian are battled with a bit is balancing the quant with the qual of like how much do the views actually matter when we know that one view can mean so much more than 50 in some cases. Like if a candidate's viewed an episode and they've applied and they've got the job and they're here and they're happy, that one view is worth so much more than maybe like 100 or 200 views from people who were just interested. So yeah, that's something we're still wrangling with, I think, of like making sure we're getting that qual feedback in and then balancing it appropriately with the qualitative stuff.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Sam?
Yeah, so we're kind of at a different stage in the Moonpig podcast. So I'd say we're quite early on in our journey at the moment. So we're mostly still focusing on just like reach and also just putting content out consistently. So we've put a fair few episodes out now, but we're kind of just focusing on trying to deliver that more consistently. It kind of comes back to what I was mentioning earlier about, obviously it's a balancing act of our current responsibilities, and we don't want to sacrifice what we're actually doing at the business to sort of go all in on the podcast. So a lot of it is around just setting up the podcast in a way that works and that we can deliver consistent episodes. But then also, yeah, primarily we are focused on kind of listener numbers for now. Not in the sense of like, if our listener number goes down, we're, devastated or anything like that. But that's kind of what we're focusing on at the moment. It's also interesting you mentioned having seasons, because we don't really have that. So we just kind of have a continuous podcast and just put out episodes like once a month in theory. And then we just kind of see how it goes from there, basically.
Yeah, I guess because we do weekly, I think we just we need a
it
break.
makes more sense. Yeah,
every now and again, and it gives the listeners a bit of a break as well, and we can come back with a new theme or a revised focus for the next one.
What's been the reaction internally? So you say you send an email out to the leadership team, and to other areas of the business. I guess like a question to Moonpig and Autotrader. What has been that reaction when you've started to share that?
From those emails that we send, is usually really positive. Just people cheering us on really, and just saying like, it's great that you're doing this and great to see that we're growing and all those kind of things. And generally just seem to get some nice comments, don't we? Like, especially I say people internally tend to pick episodes where they've got people that they work with are on it, or they want to learn about a new area, and that's where we get the really nice feedback from people to say, oh, watch that, like I had no idea that's what they did in that space and all those kind of things. So yeah, that's been good. I don't know if is there anything else, Ian, that we get?
Not really.
Through.
Like you said, mostly people cheering us on. That being said, if there's any bad comments or anybody thinks we can do anything different, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear that as well. Yeah. Because like I said, our retros are just between ourselves. So how do we know? So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. More layers.
Yeah, I mean, we've had good feedback around about it, either from guests that have come on and like just really enjoyed the process of coming on and things like that, or from people listening to it, and whether that be kind of internal to the business or external. we've had a little feedback like that, which is always good to hear. And yeah, I echo the thing about kind of constructive feedback is always welcome as well. I don't think we've had a lot of that necessarily, but yeah, I mean that's always a good. Otherwise, you can't learn how to be better, right? So,
Cool. Do you think you'll ever stop doing podcasts? Like, how do you know when? I always think this about podcasts I listen to as well, because they're like, there's some podcasts I listen to and it's like 400 episodes in, and I'm like, oh my god, I've been listening to this for like 5 years, and you don't realise like they're not like TV shows.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know when it's that good point, or is that like?
It's a good question. I think at the start of every retro, it's normally Ben Smith asks, "Do we still like doing this? Like, do we still like doing this?" And like
That is a good temperature
yeah,
check.
and we always say yes. I think, you know, as long as we are happy with the consistent output and it's of a certain quality, and you know that quality doesn't start to dip or anything like that. But equally, you know, we all have day jobs, things change. Like, you know, Pete, ALT, like it's harder to pin people down. Like, I'd love it to continue just without different people. Like, like there's no reason why I can't. If people want to get on board and learn stuff, then more than happy. You've obviously experienced that through Moonpig, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see it as more like, when do I think it's time to step away, rather than when should it die. That's the way I treat that question, I think.
That's a good perspective.
Unless you know, nobody fancies sitting in a room and chatting.
Yeah, that's the key thing. As long as you've got content, then there's no reason for it to stop. And we've still got people that reach out to us and go, "Oh, we'd love to speak about this area of the business that we haven't covered yet," and things. So
never out of things to chat about.
No,
I think that's such a good perspective, like knowing when to step away. Because one of the reasons why I got involved as a host of the podcast is when I started at Autotrader, because there's so much going on, it's such a huge company, I did have kind of like confidence issues. And I think to a certain extent that is going to be something that never goes away. But I think this really helped actually bring myself out of myself. And I'd love to be able to kind of pass that on to somebody else in the business who, you know, they might at some point want to get involved in this. Like, it's not my only job in the business and it shouldn't be something that I do forever. And I've just got thinking, like, this would be something that could help somebody else and for them to get involved in as well.
Yeah.
Unless nobody wants to, I'm just going to be doing it until I'm like 50.
Please take this off me.
Ask me in 10 years.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there'll definitely be loads of people that would love to host it at some point as well. So
because it's been a great exercise in just really kind of like, there's no other experience like it really, is there?
No.
In the workplace.
Very unique.
Yeah, I guess Sam, how about yourself? You're quite new to the so
exactly.
You're at the start.
I'm quite new because I actually joined the Moonpig podcast when one of the other hosts left because she was going to a different company. So like I would agree with what's been said around. I think it's more around the hosting team as opposed to running out of topics to talk about, especially in software engineering. Like if you're going to do technical topics as well, there's like almost an infinite amount of things you can speak about generally, and you're always going to be delivering new features and finding new things to work on. So I would never worry about it ending in terms of running out of topics. Finding like a team that has time to work on it and things like that, that's going to be the main thing. But it's not normally that difficult to find people who want to work on it, because there's always someone who, like, kind of like you said, wants to get better at public speaking, or just has a genuine interest in like content creation and like podcasting and things like that. So I think, I think probably one day like I would step away from podcasting, but I would want to find a successor in that sense. Yeah.
Excellent. So I guess this is like shameless plug time. What is coming up? What can we get people excited about? What do you want to shout about?
I think it's got to be like the James Baggett episode is coming out relatively soon as well.
What's that?
That is huge.
Yeah, James is the founder of Car Dealer magazine, but he also on the side set up his like AI powered car dealership. So he's been running a car dealership but making all his decisions with the help of
I don't know why I just
AI.
thought a Night Rider then.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
Well, you'll have to tune in and see what he has to talk about. But that's really, really interesting. And we've got our CEO. I think it'll have already been out at this point. if my scheduling's correct. But yeah, we've been trying to get Nathan, our CEO, on for quite a while. Obviously, diary's a bit of a nightmare when you're trying to get your CEO on a podcast.
Yeah.
But that's really exciting for us to
And
get Nathan on.
I think one of our biggest objectives with Roadmap, I think over the past couple of seasons, just been more external guests like Sam. Like I feel like these inroads are opening up more and more. Like we've been chatting to the Natter community, things like that. Obviously Nathan coming on board. More external guests. It'd be good. It'd be great to have more external guests on.
Yeah. So if anyone's listening and you do want to come onto the podcast, reach out to us.
Give me a shout on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Please message us on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
In terms of what we've got coming up, it's always going to be the engineer in me that's really excited about like technical deep dives. So we've got one episode coming up about our like overall system design and application architecture at Moonpig. So I think that's going to be super, super interesting because it'll kind of deep dive into the nitty gritty, like distributed systems design and how to be fault tolerant and things like that. So that will be great. And then we have another episode coming up about some accessibility improvements that were made as part of, that came out of a hackathon that we ran at Moonpig. So that's one that I also don't know much about. So I'll be really interested to hear the episode and hear what came out of that. So yeah, those are the two big ones coming up for us that I'm excited about.
Excellent. I feel like this is kind of bringing things to a nice end. Any final thoughts
I think so.
before we close off?
Thanks for
Isn't it
for
wonderful
having
that
us.
we're all doing nice things?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it great?
That's all right,
So
isn't it?
wholesome.
I like nice things.
For a Monday morning?
Yeah.
Very nice.
It is actually, Monday
Yeah.
morning. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Good
my
energy.
thing, like, have a side thing alongside your
Yeah.
job. If you're in a job and you have the capacity to do something like this alongside
do
it,
it.
Passion
doesn't have to be a
projects are
podcast.
important.
It could be anything. Like you could be helping out on the front desk or something. I don't know. Like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
something a little bit
Yeah.
different.
Passion
than just
projects are important.
Do it. Really
It
important.
mixes things up. We have such busy jobs. Let's treat ourselves to a nice hobby and work.
Yeah.
And something fun and wholesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you for joining me today. This has been Roadmap.
Like, subscribe, follow
Thanks
us.
very much.
Follow us.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to do that? Because I get it wrong every time.
I don't even know how I could do it. Like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify, LinkedIn, wherever you get your socials. Not Apple Music. It's not that great, to be honest.
Smashed it.